All right, let's go ahead and watch this video here. Then I'm going to tell you the three major key takeaways for anybody applying to medical school. If you are a college student, if you are already a physician, how this is going to affect you, and if you are an H1B applicant or a H1B visa holder. Let's watch.
We need workers, we need great workers, and this pretty much ensures that that's what's going to happen. I think, Sean, you agree with that?
Well, they're $100,000 per year. So the whole idea is no more will these big tech companies or other big companies train foreign workers. They have to pay the government $100,000, then they have to pay the employee. So it's just not economic. If you're going to train somebody, you're going to train one of the recent graduates from one of the great universities across our land. Train Americans, stop bringing in people to take our jobs. That's the policy here, $100,000 a year for H1B visas, and all of the big companies are on board. We've spoken to them about the gold card.
All right, I'm Dr. Zain Hassan. I'm a board-certified trauma anesthesiologist. I do this in my spare time. If you guys can, please like, share, subscribe. I want to get one of the plaques in the back. I want to start this off by telling you that there are three key takeaways here. Anybody applying to medical school, anybody who's already an H-1B visa, and how, if you live in a rural county, how this is going to affect your healthcare. Let's start off. Number one, what is the H-1B visa? Well, the H-1B visa is essentially designed to bring the best talent from around the world here to the United States in order to create jobs, create companies. Think Celgene, think Pfizer, think Apple, think Microsoft. Those kind of companies, not Microsoft, but Apple. Think those kind of companies, to create those companies, cultivate those companies here in the United States, create jobs and create prosperity that we enjoy in this great nation. Now, how is it going to affect hospitals across the country? Well, we got to understand what the H-1B and how it's employed inside a hospital. Starting off, H-1B visas typically take about $1,000 to $2,000 application fee that's paid per year on behalf of the employee from the employer. In this instance, the employer is going to be the hospitals, the academic institutions, the medical schools. The H-1B visas are designed to bring that talent here and keep it here from across the country. Out of the 45 or so thousand residents every single year, about 10,000 of them are on H-1B visas. There are about 65,000 total H-1B visas across the country, with another $20,000 slots being allocated to physicians or anybody who's a higher graduate level, master's, graduate, doctorate level. So about 85,000 H-1B visas per year. About 10,000 of those are taken by physicians. A majority of those are taken by residents and or physicians coming from overseas that are already physicians in their country, but they need to staff hospitals here, and they work as junior attendings, junior faculty. Now, number one, how is this going to affect anybody who's applying to medical school now, who's in medical school now applying for residency? Well, starting off the bat, if you are currently in medical school overseas, but you are a U.S. citizen, you are in the driver's seat for applying to residencies. Previously speaking, a lot of the residency slots or a lot of the residency programs, when they filled their residency slots, they took the best applicant. However, the margins for hospitals currently are about 3%. If you extrapolate $100,000 per resident per year, so let's just, for example, take an anesthesia residency. Anesthesia residencies typically have about 12 applicants per year. There are about 48 trainees in the program at any given time. If 3 of them per year are H-1B visa holders, that means 12 of them per year are being paid by the employer, which is the hospital, on behalf to the government. So you're looking at about $1.2 million for the anesthesia department. Now extrapolate that across 20 different departments inside the hospital: neurology, ER, internal medicine, family practice. 1.2 times 20, let's just do rough estimates, $20 million per year. Hospitals typically run a margin of about 3%. Can they absorb $20 million per per training program per hospital across the country? If you're looking at 100 different hospitals and you're looking at, $2 billion per year having been sucked out of the system, paid to the government. If you take that on top of the fact that about $100 billion has been pulled out of Medicare, which affects rural hospitals as well, I'll talk about that in a second. Can hospitals stomach it? I don't think so. How's it going to affect the residency applications, residency acceptance going forward? More than likely, of those 3, at least 2 of them are going to be given to U.S. citizens, not necessarily U.S. graduates, but U.S. citizens. So if you're thinking about medical school, and if you're applying to medical school, and if you want to be a physician inside United States of America, if you have a U.S. citizenship, this is going to push you to the top of the list, irrespective of whether or not the applicant who is also applying has better credentials, already a physician, already practicing in Egypt and Europe and UK and Turkey, wherever it is. Those physicians or those applicants who are applying here are going to be looked at less favorably. Now, for a long time, U.S. graduates have complained about foreign graduates taking their spots. This is going to change the system, whether or not for the better or for the worse. I'm not entirely sure. I've seen great graduates, great medical doctors who are IMGs on H1B visas. I've also seen great graduates, great medical doctors who are U.S. citizens. How is it going to affect the dynamics? More than likely, it's going to push the scales toward anybody who is a U.S. citizen. How is this going to affect the workforce going forward? Well, currently, a lot of hospitals across the country employ physicians. They bring them in from overseas, make them junior attendings, pay them less, but sponsor their H1B visas, and those physicians are able to help, whether it's in surgery, whether it's in the ER, whether it's in the internal medicine wards, wherever it is. Those physicians work as junior faculties under a senior attending. Essentially, they do a lot of the legwork for those senior attendings. A lot of those hospitals are not going to be able to take those physicians anymore. It's going to be a boon for PAs and nurse practitioners. They're going to kind of shift the model, in my opinion, away from surgeons, away from physicians, toward nurse practitioners and PAs, especially those that are U.S. citizens, because of the extra $100,000 that they pay in order to staff those positions. I do think this is going to positively affect a lot of the physicians who are currently employed and are U.S. citizens or have their H1B visas. And remember, importantly, they're changing this going forward. Anybody who's already an H1B visa holder is going to be able to pay those $1,000 to $2,000 per year. The forward-looking statements or the forward-looking employers, the forward-looking employees are going to be affected drastically. That's going to pull a lot of the physicians out of the rural healthcare spots and go toward the big organizations. This is not only going to happen in healthcare, but it's going to happen in all facets of business across the country. A lot of the big tech companies out there, Google, Amazon, Apple, are going to be able to stomach the $100,000. But the smaller companies, whether it's I don't know, take your pick, ServiceNow, Snowflake, even I don't know, any of your local startups, they're not going to be able to sponsor those H1B visas. It's going to suck the talent toward the top. So the bigger they are, the more they're going to win because they can afford it. So this is actually more of a boon for the giant tech companies out there, because they're going to be able to suck all the talent capital out of the smaller companies. And a lot of the startups, it's probably going to stifle innovation. Honestly, it's going to decrease the amount of competition these big companies have from smaller startups like Google was to Microsoft, or like Apple was to Samsung or Nokia or whoever made the original iPhones. Those smaller corporations are not going to be able to be created here in the United States. Unfortunately, it's going to pull a lot of the talent overseas, mostly to China and India, in my opinion. But if you are a physician who is currently employed, who has U.S. citizenship or has an H-1B visa, more than likely you're going to have the pick of the litter that's going to change a lot of the dynamics. There's going to be a lot of job openings going forward. There's going to be a lot of physicians and a lot of doctors who are going to be able to pick where they want to go for where they want to work. Finally, I want to make a point here for rural healthcare. Already $150 billion has been sucked out due to Medicare funding from the government. Those are changes that happened about 3 months ago. They did kick back about $20 billion for those hospitals. However, it's probably not enough. Now the talent acquisition costs are going to be very much higher. That means rural hospitals are going to suffer as far as the care goes for patients in those smaller communities. Why? Because a lot of the physicians are going to end up leaving or are not going to be able to be employed at those smaller hospitals, because a lot of those smaller hospitals cannot stomach an extra $100,000 per physician per hospital. It's either going to give you subpar candidates, or it's going to have a lot of holes and a lot of gaps and a lot of surgery centers and a lot of surgical operations and a lot of outpatient family practice clinics are going to shut down because they're not going to be able to afford their employees. This is also a giant negative, in my opinion, for rural healthcare out there. Anyways, what do you guys think? It's breaking news. Leave a comment below. How is the H-1B going to play out? I don't know how it's legally possible to be able to make these kind of declarations without having any congressional laws passed through. I imagine it's going to be challenged in the courts all the way up to the Supreme Court. It might take 6 months to a year before this is all delineated or solved. However, I think in the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to affect the way residencies, the way hospitals function, and the type of healthcare you have in the rural healthcare areas across the country, more than likely in red states as well. What do you guys think? Leave a comment below. Please subscribe. I love you guys. I will see you on the next one.